This is the Vessels Podcast, brought to you by Ask Us Why Christian Apparel. We live in a day and age where every opinion, ideology, and philosophy is at the touch of a button. But actual truth only found in God by revelation of His Word, is what can bring us true life and fulfillment that we were created for. And this podcast exists to help you navigate those day-to-day challenges that we face with a biblical and youthful perspective that brings you guidance and clarity in a world of confusion and distraction that ultimately should bring you closer to Jesus. We hope you love this podcast. And with that being said, let's get to it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Vessels Podcast. We are live in the Lion's Den, and as always, Allie is mocking me. So we're going to turn the camera and attention to her, and she's going to take over for the podcast for the rest of the day. Go ahead, Allie.
Hi, I'm Allie. Back to you, Rick.
Oh no!
Now, Rick with the weather.
All right. Connor, introduce yourself.
My name is Rick. I'll be doing the weather today. It's cold outside. Much better than it being really hot outside. That's it for me. Over to Christian with sports.
Sports. I love sports. Today, it's Friday, so there probably aren't any games because no one does anything on Friday. That's all. It's been Christian. Now we go to Remy for the vibe check.
The vibe check. The vibe check passes today, guys. We're on. We're doing it. Hey, if you're listening to this right now, stop what you're doing. Stop right now.
And stop listening.
Stop. Nope, still listen. Stop what you're doing. If you're listening on the podcast on Spotify, go to the app right now and leave us a review. Like it. Put the stars on there. It's so easy. Just do it. It helps us out so much. We would love it and appreciate you if you guys did that. So we're going to wait until you do it.
Why would they leave a review before they listen to anything?
Hey.
These guys probably already listened on the podcast, Connor.
Because
Gosh.
already
If it's your
5
first time,
seconds
obviously no
in.
pressure. But it'd still be cool if you did it. Anyways, all right. I think we're good. We did it now. Hey, good job. Nice. That's the amount of time it took to do that.
Boom.
No excuse now.
Boom.
All right, guys. We are just going to jump right into it because the question we're talking about today is kind of serious. It's kind of, it's been close to my heart for a long time. I got a lot of experience with it. We're talking about red flags in relationships.
Woo! I don't know why we did that.
I don't know why you guys did that
I don't think we've
either.
ever
You
done
started it.
that. I was trying to be supportive after mocking him.
And now it just came off as more
Mockery.
mocking.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's been my whole life. All right. So what are some red flags in relationship, guys? Let's just jump into it. What do you guys got? What are some red flags you guys have experienced in past relationships? I guess that's a good place to start before we talk about general ones.
Go ahead, Allie. You first.
Okay.
Yeah, Allie's got a few to say.
No, I feel like the biggest ones I've experienced is controlling. And I do want to clarify there's a difference between like caring and controlling. And I feel like I experienced that the most with like Connor compared to my like other relationships of like Connor is very caring and very like protective of like, hey, like I just want to like love you well and tell you like that if that is like a very low top, I ask that maybe you don't wear that because that's not respectful of our relationship or of your body or of anyone like your other brothers in Christ, which I respect. And then there are people that I've dated that are like mean and just not kind in that way and more controlling over they own me and less of a I want to help you and like walk alongside you. So over controlling, that's a thing. Asking for your location and checking it 24/7 and then being like, oh my gosh, you're here, now you're here.
That's kind of psycho.
That spooks me.
That's gross.
And then
Can you imagine like if that was the way it was like 300 years ago? They just like sent someone in like a pigeon to like follow you everywhere. Report back to me. They're at the library. What is she
I
doing
didn't
there?
receive your pigeon.
I didn't know she could read.
Oh no. But controlling, I'd also say like making excuses for them, like their bad behavior, constantly being like, oh, well, that's just how relationships are. Relationships are hard. Like we fight a lot, but that's just like me. Like, it's just how it is, like making some excuses. Another big red flag is if your friends are telling you like, hey, this is bad.
Yo.
Maybe don't be like, you're just jealous, Susie.
This is huge.
Susie. Susie's
But
always wrong.
those are the biggest ones I feel like I've experienced besides like verbal abuse, which gets toxic. But those are like the biggest things. I'm like, yo, if this is happening,
That's a
run.
good one, babe.
Thanks.
That's a good one.
Thanks.
Connor, you got something to share?
Yeah, I think kind of going off like the last couple things you said with friends and with like accountability. First of all, if they don't have any close friends like in the same, gender as them, that's a big red flag. If they're a girl, they can't get along with any other girls or have close relationships with like other, like-minded Christian girls, like that's probably not a good thing. And same thing with a guy. Like if a guy can't get along with any other guys without trying to compete or without trying to, one up somebody every time, or if they're trying to, just be better, look better, like everything's a competition and there's just a lot of pride there, that's also not a good thing. And I think that also boils down to if they don't have a church community, like a church that they're serving at, committed to, if they've, because I hear it a lot of times, like, especially with like freshmen at school, like there's obviously, you're moving to a whole new place a lot of the time, like different states. That makes sense. But if it's like second semester, your freshman year, and you're still just going to chapel every Monday and you don't actually go to church on Sunday because you just want to live stream the church at your home and, you just haven't found one yet. Like that's fine. But like if you're not actively involved in a church community and surrounded by people who will tell you if you're being dumb, and challenge you to be a better person, and be more like Christ, then that's a red flag for either side, I think.
Mm-hmm. Christian, you got any you want to add?
Yeah,
Well, we got a list.
That's
Nice. I got a list too.
Yeah, I have a list. I think two of the big ones that I would say is an unwillingness to take personal responsibility for things in the relationship. So if nothing is ever their fault in a disagreement or an argument and they're not willing to compromise, I think that's a huge red flag. And another one would be an unwillingness to invite community into the relationship and be transparent about it. So if you, like yourself, sense a hesitancy to share about what you guys are doing behind closed doors or stuff about his character, the way he treats you with others, then that is definitely a red flag. Like you should want to boast about like how kindly and patient and gently he's treating you, especially for girls, for guys as well, like how you're being treated. Just because you're the man doesn't mean she can talk you out of being happy, or manipulate you or whatever. So definitely controlling their words, gossiping, slandering others, just being negative in general, I think is a pretty big red flag.
Yeah. It was just funny just thinking about how I have such a huge list of different red flags. And it's like, man, it sounds like this person has to be like perfect.
Does that say Snapchat?
Yeah. I put funny ones in
Do
here
they
too.
have a
Snap-
I was like,
Snapchat.
listen, first red flag is if they Snapchat.
I saw just
Funny.
before you say anything, we were doing RA interviews this week, and we walked through like the halls to get to the study rooms for interviews, and a lot of like doors have like whiteboards on the end of them, and they have like polls a lot of times, and we walked by one and it said like, what are some red flags for guys? And they had like a expo marker that people could write in. A lot of them were good. A lot of them were like really funny. They were like, is a gamer. They were like, wears Bass Pro hats. It was the funniest thing. I was like, they're on to something here.
They're on to something. No, seriously though, if you're interested in a full grown man and he still Snapchats
What about a semi-grown?
a semi-grown, is that just like the new polite way to say dwarf?
Oh, gosh.
Semi-man.
Semi-grown.
Semi-grown. I mean, you're talking about like someone that's like 18, 17.
I think she was just making
I
a
was
joke.
making
I
a
don't
joke.
think it was
Oh,
There
actually-
had no
gosh.
weight to it.
Wow. way to disrupt the flow. No, yeah, if they Snapchat, probably not a good idea.
It's
I
No,
really
no.
don't understand why
I disagree.
Snapchat.
I disagree because I have close
Well,
friends who
I know.
Snapchat.
If they
and the
Snapchat
memes
just
are great
guys, then that's fine. But when you're the type to Snapchat girls,
Yeah, that's no good.
it's like,
with malicious intent.
yeah, you might have malicious intent like late at night, but even in the day, it's like, why? Why do you have to communicate like that? Like, what does that say about your ability to communicate? Because you'd rather just send a picture with like 2 words and like that's your conversation versus like, if you want to talk to this person, like talk to that, you know? I don't know. I think I just have a particular opinion about Snapchat. No, but so here's the thing though, is that like, you know, I can look at this super long list and I can add on a ton of them. And the fact of the matter is like, you're not going to find someone that's perfect. Like there's always going to be issues that come up in relationships. No one's going to be the picture perfect person for us. But at the same time, like you have to have high standards for this, because this goes back to the same idea we've talked about for a while now, which is that like you should only be dating to marry. So like if you're just dating to have fun, sure, let the red flags fly. Like, let them fly over the relationship and just have fun, because you're just in it for the emotional roller coaster. But if you're looking for someone to marry, like you have to realize that those are the problems that you're going to bring into the marriage. And you also might think that you're going to fix those problems, which is a really big lie. You're not going to fix every single problem that person has or think that you're going to be the cure for that problem. Like we talked about that a little bit a couple weeks ago, right? With pornography and how it's like they have a problem, they're trying to get over it. You're not going to necessarily be the reason why they get over that. They have a lot of things they're going through and they're struggling with. Like we have baggage we bring into relationships, but like you have to be really careful about what you choose to bring into that, because it ultimately will become your problem in a marriage. And like you have to like manage those things. And so the less things you can bring in, the better. And like this isn't to say that like these are things where like, no, they have to have a 401k set up, a pretty solid Roth IRA. They have to have at least, you know, 10,000 in savings. Like no, like that's not the things. This is more about character, and it's about their spiritual relationship with God. So that's what I would just kind of preface with before kind of going into this. Because the ultimate thing, I think, what is it? JP says, he says, don't lower your standards, lengthen your patience. Is that what he says? What a guy. Such a good phrase. Here's a few things that I wrote down that I would say are some red flags to look for. The first is too much dependence on you, which kind of ties into this idea of like they're always looking up your location, always have to do that stuff. But this is one I personally experienced, where it was like the other person just couldn't do life without you. And it's like, yeah. Like now that I'm married and now that I'm experiencing all of it, you really need someone that has their own life too. You have to.
Which is crazy too, because you hear that all the time in like Hollywood and like
I
a
can't
lot
do
of
life without
yeah,
you.
like a lot of vows
Yeah.
at weddings. It's like, I don't know what I would do without you. Like my
It's like,
life would be
well-
meaningless. It's like that's so unhealthy
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
Christian relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, 100%. You need someone. There's 3 different words that I've come to learn, and there's probably more, I don't know. But there's independence, there's dependence, and there's interdependence.
I was
I
going to
guess-
say codependent.
Codependence.
Yeah.
I think codependence and interdependence are
Are
about the same thing.
Yeah.
Independence is like really on the side of like, I'm just doing everything by myself. I don't need anybody else. Dependence is where you need someone for like everything. And then interdependence is where you have that balance of independence and dependence with your partner. So like there's certain areas where like you don't need them to do life. You don't need them to drive to the store, to go to get groceries. You don't need them to like make like opportunities for you to hang with friends and to like initiate hangouts and like pour into other people and like have that community and those kind of things and do things with your day.
Yeah.
But then there's also things like that you do depend on when it comes to like living in a house together and like having shared responsibilities and those kind of things, and like depending on each other to like be that support system when like you are going through a hard time. Like there are certain things that you can depend on, but I have seen that if like the other person cannot live life without you and they show like almost separation anxiety, or if you go like for instance, this is usually a really good test of it, is like going on a trip separate where you're away from them for a certain amount of time, and usually the longer the better, because it really tests that level of like, can I manage time away from you and like learn how to do life separate? Because I know for you guys, when Connor went to Africa, it really pushed you to like grow.
That sucked.
Yeah, because that was a month.
That was a month. That wasn't like a 3-day trip. That was a month with no.
Yeah.
Here's the difference. No. I'm backing myself up here. There was no
Go ahead,
communication at all. It was like maybe once when I was going to bed at like 3 a.m. He'd be like, "Love you." I'm like,
we were on an elephant one time, and Connor called out.
Yeah, he FaceTimed me.
And I have a video of him
That was
on the
incredible.
phone. That was
but like that's the. It's not like it was like long distance where we could talk all day.
Right.
It
No,
was
that's the
very
point
different.
though, is like being able to go without having to have a conversation constantly going with
Yeah.
them, because you need to learn that like there are other things in this world than just them. Like
Oh yeah.
you have to. So that one is huge. I experience that a lot. And so if you have someone that cannot do life without you, you should probably
And I think
be
what we're saying
looking
too,
out.
just to clarify, is like it's not like we're saying you can't miss that person.
Right.
Like there's a huge difference between like feeling like you still want to obviously be around that person because you enjoy them and because
Exactly.
you want to, like you miss them. But there's that, and then there's like you don't know like how to do your day anymore because
Yeah.
they are not there. Like you don't see motivation to get anything done, to be productive, to be more like Christ, because you feel like there's like your whole day is just thrown off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Love that.
I'd love to touch on one more thing with this too. Like if you are in a relationship and then, you know, the thought of breaking up just wrecks you, or you do get broken up with and all of a sudden like you're just so emotionally distraught that you can't handle like anything, that shows you, I think, that you haven't guarded your heart. I think that's where this whole idea of like, that's one aspect of guarding your heart, you know, very cliche phrase, but it's real. Like you don't need to be emotionally dependent upon that person just for life.
Yeah.
Like you should be able to be okay without them because that person is not your God.
Yeah.
Like God should be where your identity, your hope comes from, not this person. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have a friend that just recently went through a breakup that was like really hard because, you know, he was planning on like marrying this person and things did not go that way. And so like to hear something like that can be a hard truth, but also you would want to defend it and say like, but it's not the same. We were going to get married and we were so close to that. And I would just say again that no, that's exactly kind of the point, is you have to have those emotional boundaries. If the ring's not on the finger and you're not married, like you have to be careful because you never know. I've seen engagements break off. I'm not saying that's gonna happen to you guys by any means, but like I've seen it in the past, and I've seen it with relationships where like things start to, you think they're going that way, and then they don't. But like if you've invested emotionally into them like way too much, then like there's like a level of intimacy and a bond with them that does make it hard to like break off. So you do have to be careful to some degree, like how much emotion you bring into that, unless you're like, we're going to commit to this thing and make this thing happen. So otherwise you go through a breakup and it hurts. And I've gone through that and
Right.
it sucks because then you're like, wow, I feel like I gave so much to that person and now we're just not going to be together anymore.
Right.
And so if you can protect yourself and just only have that with one partner for your whole life, you're going to save yourself a lot of pain.
Yeah. And we all talked about that too, how like that engagement can feel like a divorce when it breaks off, because like we have such a skewed view of dating and of engagement and all
Right.
of that stuff. And that's what makes that so hard.
Right.
But I agree with Christian, like your response to that breakup does say a lot about your relationship as a whole, like maybe how intimate you got. I'm not saying physically, but maybe emotionally, spiritually. Like even I remember when Connor was going to go to Africa and he was like, you should come with me. A big reason is because that was very spiritually intimate for me to go with him. And I'm like, okay, if I go, you can't be my boyfriend there. Like you got to be a leader. I'm a leader. Like I'm doing like we can't be that. I can't do that. I knew that would wreck me if something were to happen to us.
Yeah.
So I had to guard my heart and not go. So there are things that I don't know. I'm just saying I agree because it's really hard when you go through a breakup to hear that or
Totally.
to think that way.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of truth in that.
Totally. Yeah. So next, I would say constant jealousy and trust issues. I think we've kind of touched on that a little bit. It kind of goes in the same thing about dependency. It's like if you can't trust your partner to be able to like be around people of the same sex, if you're like in a work environment or on a trip or something like that, then like that can be a huge sign of like, well, jealousy. And you have to be careful about that because if the other partner has trust issues, like it can play into commitment. And that's not to say that like if they have trust issues, because I'm going to say like, you know, we've gone through that in the past and we've seen that it doesn't mean that it's like the end all, like you got to break things off, but it's something to be careful about and something you need to address in the relationship.
It's something to work on.
Something to work on if you have that struggle is if they do have that. But if they have it like to an extreme where like you're not allowed to go be
or
with
they'll
them,
be like, I'm gonna kill myself if you don't leave that party. Like that's an extreme.
right? And so yeah, if you can see it's more on the extreme side, that is also a huge red flag. Trust issues is also huge too, because entire relationships are built on trust. Like I have to be like, I get such a conviction in my heart if I don't tell Alyssa the truth, even if it's for things that like is going to backfire on me. Like I have to say it because I'm like, you know what? It's going to come out whether or not I like it. She's either going to just find out later on and in a worse situation, or I just tell her now and I face the fire now. So, like learning to be honest about like everything that's going on. Like if you don't have a partner, it's going to, and now I will say that also plays into the emotional boundaries of like before you're married. Like you have to be careful obviously of like, no, I need you to tell me everything about you and your deepest, darkest things. And you're like, whoa. Let's kind of hold back on that right now. But as far as like everything else, like, can you trust this person or do you have trust issues? Like you can't see them going other places, that independency versus dependency kind of thing. It just kind of all intertwines that if there are trust issues that you can see that leads to something much bigger like that in the future, also a red flag. The next one I would say is look at their friends. That will say a lot about who they are and like what their behavior is like, their character. Because we talk about a lot on here that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So look at the 5 people that they hang out the most with. Like, what does that say about their choice of friends? What does that, and unless like they address, they're like, hey, by the way, I have a really bad community and I'm trying to get out of it. Like, then that's a good reason to be like, oh, okay, cool. But if they enjoy their community and they embrace that constantly and they're bad influence, non-believers, or they're poor believers, whatever it is, that can be a really good sign early on of like, okay, well, like that's their friend group. And if you're going to continue this relationship, like that's going to be a part of your friend group and you have to spend time with those people too. And you have to learn to like get along with them and to love them well. And you might not like them, but like that's also something that if you're, just going to kind of brush that off, could end up backfiring on you later on if those friends continue to stay in their life.
Right.
So, that's definitely one. I wrote down, you guys, the same thing. If your friends and family don't like them, listen to them. Like,
no one wants to be wrong. Like nobody wants to feel like they chose the
Amen
wrong
to
person.
that. Amen to that.
Literally just like ask, like, okay, I've learned that instead of getting defensive, ask questions.
Yes.
Like if they're like, oh, I don't like him. Don't be like, well, that sucks, doesn't it? Like, don't get mad. Ask why. Why don't you like him? Can you give me examples?
Yep.
Or next time it happens, can you call it out right when it's happening?
Yeah.
Like anything. Because okay, first of all, if they're your friend and they love you, they're not saying that to hurt you. At least they shouldn't be. They probably 95% aren't. But I would question it. Don't push back on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing with any authority. When someone's telling you something, they're coming to you with something, ask questions. Don't get defensive.
Yeah. No, 100%. We somehow think that like if your friends are telling you, hey, like I don't think this is a good relationship for you to be in, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, you want the worst for me in life? Like you're an awful friend. Like get out of my life. It's like
I had that happen to me, and then she married the guy, and now we don't talk to her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was told by my family and some friends for a while with my last one, and I didn't listen, and it backfired on me because I continued in a relationship for months and months and months that ended up being really hurtful. So
I was very fortunate and listened, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Tammy.
That's right. If you guys want to go listen to our breakup stories episode, you guys can get the background for that one. Yeah. But yeah, like if your friends and family think that there's some red flags or something to be concerned about, like love can be blinding. And so when you're in the mix of, especially if you, well, I guess there's really no exception, because I wanted to say at first, like if you haven't been in a relationship for a while and you get into a relationship, then like that first little feeling, or maybe it's your first relationship, you're ecstatic in love, you're feeling the euphoria of all of it, and you're like, this is awesome, I love this, versus you've already been in a couple relationships and now you're on that same track. But honestly, like emotions are still the same. Like if you're in love with someone or you like someone a lot and you desire to be with them and all of the fun, lovey things that you get into a relationship with, like it's going to be the same thing. So like if if that's the case, like you're going to be blind to some of the things that you might not see because you're going to look past those offenses. And while that is a good thing, is that you should be looking past like small offenses and things like that that maybe are smaller red flags or whatever. Because again, we're not looking for someone perfect. But if they're bringing up consistently that there is something wrong or like, hey, this just doesn't sit right with me, I don't really like this about that or whatever it is, those can be like huge signs that you should be looking more into the relationship than just overlooking those things. And another one on top of that is like, how do they treat your friends and family? A big one is family. Like, how do they interact with your family? Are they the type where when they show up to like the family events, they just kind of hide in the corner and don't say anything? Because that should be a red flag. Like, why don't they want to engage with your family? Is it because they're shy? Give it a little bit of time. But if it's consistent and they just choose that they don't like your family or they don't want to participate, like, that's your family. Like, you love them. And like, if you're going to become one, like that becomes their family too. So like, if you're not going to be in a relationship and you're willing to like love on and participate and like be a part of their family on the other side on both ways, like it's another problem you're going to bring into your marriage that's going to be a lot harder to deal with because now you've already done the dating thing. You guys have been doing that for a while and now you're married, but nothing, just because you signed a marriage license doesn't mean that like their opinion now obviously changes about your family and they're all of a sudden going to love them. Like usually how they treat them before is usually how they'll treat them after, obviously, unless they go through like character change, but like more often than not, you can't control that. So you're banking on something that's a maybe. So that's one huge too. Cause I noticed that in my relationship is that they were like, I don't really want to like go see your family, but they always wanted me to go see their family. And so I used to drive hours and hours and hours and hours to go see their family. But then it was like, my family was up the street and the idea never crossed their mind to like go visit my family. And I'm like, huge red flag.
I literally almost said, I was like, who's going to tell them it's a red flag?
Like, it's just, yeah. Like who's going to be the one that gets prioritized for holidays and who's the one that's going to be thrown to the curb and has to work around the schedule.
Or like even in marriage, like as hard as it is, like looking at like if that would have happened, like you have to be number one.
Yeah.
Like even with our premarital coaching with Christina and Nate, like they fully were like, Connor, Allie, like you are each other. Like you guys are a family. Yeah. Like Allie, he's your number one. Connor, she's yours. Because you can't be like, well, my family and then basketball and then Allie. Like that's not how that works.
Well, football would be
above basketball. I know. I hear you. Steelers, Suns, me. I understand. But like that genuinely can't be how it is.
Yeah.
But people who love their stop it right now. People who do that with their family, like where there's almost no room for you.
Yeah.
Like that is just that's a weird environment.
Yep.
I'm not saying if you love your family, adore your family, enjoy spending time with them, that you're a complete weirdo and you should just marry your family. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying
I'm just kidding.
You're like, well, I'm saying it. But I'm saying it can be a red flag if you genuinely believe that you are perfect and your family's perfect and you don't really want to get to know another family. Like that, you should never want to stop knowing people and like loving people and finding out about people. You just shouldn't ever be like, oh, well, I have 5 friends and that's enough for me.
Yep.
You can have 5 close friends, but that doesn't mean you have to be rude to the lady at the grocery store. Like, you know what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I agree. And so let me just kind of finalize with a few of them here because Christian's got to get to work, guys. Lack of vision for a future. Ooh. So the best way to do this is to ask them, where do they see themselves in 5 years? And it's not like they have to have a full plan of, well, I plan to work at this place. I'll have an internship for a year. Then I'll work at this other place for 3 years. Like that's not exactly, I think, what we're looking for. What we're looking for is like, are you striving for something? Or are you just kind of doing life and letting it happen as you go? Because if that's the case, what happens if you get an opportunity to go live in Hawaii and do like, I don't know, some kind of ministry out there? And you're like, cool, I got nothing going on here.
Yeah.
If you're the only reason why, like, they're not just jumping on a plane and flying somewhere to go live life somewhere else. Every time you sneeze, your headphone is hitting the microphone. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But like, if you're one of the only reasons why they're literally just stuck there and they could just anytime just hop on a plane or just leave or do something else with their life, like that's a really good sign that they're probably not someone you should be in a relationship with. But you also should be only in a relationship with someone that really does have a plan for what they're trying to do in life. Because
No, that's just a question. You can finish your
Oh,
thought.
okay.
It's a question for you after.
Remember, you can always just like interject.
Okay, I'm gonna
This is
interject.
No,
fine.
raise my hand.
Do you think it's a red flag then if someone's pushing marriage? Like if someone's like, we need to get, like they're just obsessed with it. Like they like can't let it go. Everything and all questions come back to somehow that they're going to get engaged or that they want to get married. Like everything is about that. Do you think that's a red flag? Typically it's women, but sometimes there are men who are like, I'm just going to propose. And the woman's like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah, well,
Not yet.
I guess it's circumstantial because I mean I know people that they only needed a month before they both got engaged to each other because they knew they wanted to marry each other, and it depends
Right.
on if both parties know they want to get married. Then it's like one of them is saying we should really get married, and maybe they're pressing onto that because they understand the temptations of engagement and dating longer, and they're like, if we're gonna do this thing, like let's do this.
Yeah.
Versus if it's because they have trust issues and they're like,
This will fix all my problems.
I have a fear that you're going to leave me if I don't commit to this, or we don't get you to sign this contract. So please sign
Sign
here.
the paper.
Please sign here, here, and here at the office, and then we'll do a celebration later with family. But let's just like go do it. So yeah, I guess I would say it was circumstantial for why it's a
answer.
red flag.
Okay.
Good answer. Good
answer,
answer.
good
And very quickly to another red flag.
Yeah.
On the opposite end is if they're unwilling to like make it official. If like
Uh.
you're increasing emotional, physical intimacy without increasing level of commitment, then
Yeah.
that's a red
You've been
flag.
dating for 5 years. Probably not. Probably not great.
I'm going to be the type to be like, if you've been dating for more than like a year and a half, maybe even a year.
Wait, guys, so many people listening to this are going to be like,
Yeah, but like, here's the thing: is like, it's not, and this is what people always get wrong whenever I put posts on social media about this. Is like, it's not saying that you have to be married at that year or year and a half mark. What you need to do is decide: is this someone I want to spend the rest of my life
oh,
with?
good clarification.
And then proceed
clarification.
in that direction.
Yep.
Because
Yes and
people are
amen.
like, I need more time to figure this out. It's like, no, you don't. You've already, if you're going to decide at this point that you're not going to marry that person and you've spent a year plus of your life with them, what a shame it is if you guys break up and now you have a year of your life you wasted with emotions into someone that's not going to be there for the
That's
rest
why
of your life.
dating in high school is so dumb because you date and now that's 4 years and it's like, no, that doesn't count.
Yeah, that's a red
that
flag.
simply
If
does
they're
not
in high
count.
school. There's your next red flag.
Oh,
Are they in
no.
high school?
Oh no.
Are they 16?
But you know what I
Can
mean?
your mom drop me off?
Can they
at-
drive?
Can they drive? But you know what I mean? Like when people are like, we've been dating for like 5 years, and it's like, well, how much of that was
Yeah.
when you actually knew what, like you knew that like the covenant of marriage, that you like understood your boundaries, you
Right.
created that. Like, tell me that because I guarantee you it wasn't in high school that you
Yep.
were like, the covenant of marriage is
Well,
so
we sat
important.
together at lunch though.
We held hands.
Held hands at recess. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So-
you
We
can
braid
suck
each
it.
other's
I
hair.
guess you could say things are getting pretty serious. So yeah, if they don't have a vision for their future, just kind of going back on that. If they're not striving for something,
If they treat you the same way they treat their other friends of the opposite gender,
that could, yeah,
that
that's
is
a red flag
weird.
too.
That is weird.
That is true. Next one I would say real quick is, again, what you were saying kind of earlier about like valuing church and community. Like if they're not committed to a church, now obviously if they've just moved into a state, sure. But also probably don't date someone that just moved into the state. Let them settle in and like live their life a little bit before you take over. I was the person that didn't give people time to settle down and to like find life, build community, do all those things. And so I was a part of the reason why they had a dependency issues because I was the one that brought them into everything. So
Right.
I was like the middleman for it. And so there was no direct connection really. So it kind of backfired on me. So if they don't value like church and have a community they're committed to, and like they're like, oh yeah, I just do online church. It's like, no, you need to have
Bad answer.
Wrong.
physical local location you need to be committed to, and that needs to be something that's like top priority because that is huge and it is biblical.
Huge.
And definitely needs to be at the forefront of any relationship is valuing
That's a big one right there.
That's-
That is a big one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like a big one. Let me
If
tell
they
you.
use Bitmoji unironically. If they know what Bitcoin is. I'm just kidding.
If
my
they're a Dallas Cowboys fan,
Particularly for the cheerleaders
if
Ah.
and if they follow them on Instagram.
all right, here's my last one I got for us. If they are a dispensationalist, huge red flag. I'm sorry. I had to get it in there.
Oh no.
Cessation-ish.
I'm so sorry. I had to add that one in there. If you don't know what that means, you can look it up.
If
and then-
immediately upon meeting you, they ask what Enneagram number you are.
Oh gosh.
I'm
Oh
a
my
5.
gosh. If you take Revelation literally, you're a red flag. That's what that says, basically.
If they wear a Bass Pro Shop hat.
My other one was if they only watch CNN or if they only watch Fox. That's a red flag.
If they have one cross earring and they're a guy.
Hey!
If they have tattoos, huge red
Exactly.
flag.
Forearm.
Huge red flag. They're just asking for them to be sent to the pits.
If he owns a Tesla.
hey.
If he's
This is
a
getting
photographer. If he has a guitar but doesn't play it.
Or if he brings his guitar to every camping trip and wants to play it.
Yes, there you go.
No.
There you go. Oh my gosh.
If she considers cheerleading.
A sport?
I'm just kidding. Competitive cheerleading is very hard.
I was like, was that
He's like, I'm just kidding. I watch Cuties. Isn't that the cheerleading show on Netflix?
I have no
I know what
idea.
you're talking about. I saw an episode yesterday. 2 nights ago. I actually didn't watch it, but they were watching it. in my living room.
Anywho, that's
okay.
us. That's red
Anyways.
flags.
All right. We might do a part 2 of this. Who knows? We'll see. I know we got lots we can
If
talk
they
about
think
with
Friends
this.
is better than The Office. Red flag.
Oh.
Red
They're
flag.
not the ones to
Good
compare.
one.
You
And
either compare Parks and Rec and Office or Friends and How I Met Your Mother.
I
Because
agree
they're
with you.
way
I agree
different
with you
in the
because
I
structure.
believe
different.
How I Met Your Mother
Right.
is still better than Friends.
I disagree.
Well,
I think
let me
How I
tell
Met
you
Your
How I
Mother's
Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother is very,
Bad.
very bad. It is very inappropriate. Friends
How I Met
is
Your
not
Mother?
nearly as inappropriate.
All of those shows are very inappropriate.
That is very true.
Well, not every show's got a Barney. You know what I'm saying?
Barney is just not. Anywho,
What's Barney?
if you
Joey.
disagree with anything we
He's a big
said,
red, big purple
feel
dinosaur.
free to email us at connormedea@gmail.com.
Share your red flags. We'll probably do a part 2
Share
of
your red
this.
flags. Let's all just have honesty hour. DM us our biggest red flags.
Oh, I'm totally gonna ask this. We'll do a part 2. So, anyways, we love you guys. Christian's literally like, I'm out of here.
If he's in a hurry to leave.
Oh my gosh. We love you guys, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace out. Peace.
See ya.
Bye.